So, it's springtime. That just has a bunch of old stuff, like this old arugula that's bolted, which means gone to seed. And so obviously you remove this stuff, and then what you've got to do is rejuvenate the soil, because plant health starts with soil health. So I have a bag of soil here, and I have a bag of compost here, and then I also, for extra credits, have a bag of worm castings. That's a fancy word for worm poop. And it's one of the best things you can do for your soil, for its health, for the health of the plants, and it's also a natural pesticide, which not many people know. So it's an amazing thing to add to almost anything you're growing. So what I'm going to do is I have some arugula, like I said. I also have some little baby kales here. The arugula's been in here so long, it gets spicier and spicier as, the longer it's in here. So it's like eating a pepper at this point. It's very spicy. I don't think we're going to want this. I'm just going to remove that. But I'm going to cut the kale, save it, and maybe we'll have a salad for lunch. A few of you guys have asked me why the arugula flowers like that. Plants tend to flower when the temperatures warm up. So, it's the beginning of spring. We're in Southern California. It's getting hotter. And that's the plant's signal to spread its seed. So it makes a flower, which makes the seed. But it's also commonly believed that when a plant flowers like that, the greens become more bitter. So a lot of people will either trim off the flowers, or they just remove the crop altogether and get ready for a summer crop. So that's basically the decision I've made. I'm going to turn this over. This is going to become my new tomato planting bed for this next season. So what I want to do is get it all ready, all full of nutrients. You can see the soil level here is very low, as I said earlier. This soil has been decomposing for a couple of months now, and it's time to add more organic matter, which is our compost, and also add more nutrition. So what I have, because I'm doing this organically, is I have this worm castings, that's worm poop, and I'm going to put in a new bag of soil, a new bag of compost, and some of these worm castings, and I'm going to till the whole thing up. So first things first, what I'm going to do is take the shovel, and I'm going to turn the soil that's existing in here like this. And just make sure it's all kind of like loose. It will get kind of clumpy, but don't worry too much about that. Just get in there and break it up. And then after we do that, we're going to add the other stuff, and we're going to turn it all together. So take a look. There you go. Just got this all tilled up, nice and combined. You can't see any kind of different texture in this. We've got soil, we've got compost, and we've got worm castings, but it all appears to be one kind of integrated material, very nice and fluffy. I mean, you definitely want to grow in here if you were a tomato plant. I'm telling you, like, this is prime real estate. So, yeah, and I just took one of these little guys. You can use whatever works. You can use your fingers. Just kind of broke up the bigger clumps. Ooh, I want to show you something. Look at that. That is one of the worst pests you can get. This little thing is a cutworm. That thing will chew on the stem of your plant right at the soil level, and it will cut your plant down like a freaking little lumberjack. So if you see these you know what I do? I throw them to the birds. Just throw them on a hot roof. Let the birds have at them. See you later, sucker. Okay, so I was trying to decide what I was going to plant for you guys today, and I thought about it. My seedlings are quite small still. They haven't been hardened off. Remember, hardening off means they're exposed to greater and greater lengths of sunlight for a few days until they can be ready for fully being outdoors. And they're not really ready for that yet. But I do have this tomato here, and this is a tomato volunteer, which means that it grew here on its own, just from like a fallen tomato that, the seeds went into the soil, and it probably overwintered there, and then when it became warmer, it realized, hey, it's time to germinate. So this guy just kind of grew here on its own. I think I'm going to transplant this over there, because I have been planning this as the tomato and other nightshade bed. You keep all the vegetables of the same family in one bed, and I think it should be fine because tomatoes are very hardy when you transplant them. They're one of the few vegetables that you can actually kind of really mess with the roots. They don't mind being messed with. So I'm gonna put this guy over there and keep our fingers crossed, because if this is what I think it is, it's one of the most delicious cherry tomatoes in the whole world. Like, honestly, you can hate tomatoes and you'll eat like a bucket of these. So let's just get going. I'll show you how it's done. So I've got this little trowel here. This is kind of nice because it's quite large and I can kind of loosen the soil around the plant. You want to retain as much of the roots of any plant as possible when you're transplanting it. That just reduces its transplant shock. So I'm going to be kind of generous around the plant and just kind of sever these. Tomatoes actually have, if you've ever looked close at a tomato, they have all these little tiny hairs along the side on the stem, and each one of those hairs that has the propensity to become a new root if it is placed underneath the soil level. So actually one approach is to remove all the lower branches and then submerge this plant it deeper than what it had originally been growing at, and then all these little things will start to become little roots. And that helps the plant establish itself in its new home more easily. So that's what I'm going to do today. Let's just take off some of these lower branches. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, these tomatoes, they like a good fight. So I can bury this up to about here now. So I'm going to get under this plant with my trowel. I'm going to reach in with my hand. Try to retain as much of the soil as I can around the root ball. I'm going to come over here and let's just plant it in its nice own little corner right here. I didn't dig a hole yet. That was not good forethought. It's not the end of the world though. We'll figure it out. Okay. Let's get this thing nice and low like I mentioned. So I'm just going to clear out a nice deep hole here. Okay, that was the bottom of the box, so that's a good place to stop. Let's get this in there. Okay, hold it upright like that and just fill her in. This is a technique that was taught to me by one of the experts in the Master Gardener program. So this is actually a tested and approved scientific method through the University of California. And I've done it before. I did it last year, and it worked miracles. There we go, and that's pretty much it. And we'll water it, of course. Whenever you transplant something or plant seeds, you always have to water them. That's the first thing that you do. So give that a little spray, maybe put the cage around it so it has a little support, and just let it do its thing. Put the branches inside so that they can be supported as they fall outwards. Okay, that's pretty good. Get the hose on. It'll be really fun to see how this guy does. I think he's going to be strong because he already grew from seed that overwintered in that flower bed. And I'm feeling very confident that it will do well. Even though this position is sunnier than its original position, it still gets really heavy morning light there. So, as opposed to a brand new start that was started indoors, I think this guy's going to be less sensitive to the sun. So let's watch and see.